They say you never forget the moment your children break your heart. Mine chose Christmas dinner. I stood in that gleaming kitchen, holding my grandmother's sweet potato pie, the one I'd made with these arthritic hands since 5 in the morning. While my own daughter laughed and said, "Mum, we told you this was catered." Did you forget again? But I hadn't forgotten anything. That was the problem. I'd been remembering too much, seeing too clearly. And what I saw that night made me realize that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones planning your destruction. Before I begin my story, let me know in the comments where you are listening from and what time it is. I just want to know I'm not alone in this. And if you feel moved by what you hear, consider subscribing. It helps more people become aware of the reality of elder abuse. Now let me tell you what really happened. The alarm went off at 4:30 on Christmas morning, just like it had for the past 43 years. My husband Gerald used to joke that I took Christmas more seriously than Santa Claus himself. Even now, 7 years after I buried him, I couldn't break the habit. Christmas was sacred in the Carter house. It was family. It was love. It was home. I sat up slowly, feeling the familiar ache in my lower back, the stiffness in my fingers that the cold winter air always made worse. 68 years old, and my body liked to remind me of every one of those years first thing in the morning. But my mind was sharp as ever, despite what my children had been saying lately. The house was quiet and dark. I'd lived here for 35 years, raised 3 babies in these rooms, buried my husband from this living room, and knew every creak and corner by heart. I made my way to the kitchen, turning on just the small light over the stove. There was something peaceful about being up before the world, something that made me feel close to Gerald. He used to sit at that table with his coffee, watching me bake, saying I made magic happen in that kitchen. The sweet potato pie was my specialty. My grandmother taught me when I was 9 years old, and I'd been making it the exact same way ever since. The recipe wasn't written down anywhere. It lived in my hands, in the way I could tell by touch when the filling was the right consistency, in knowing exactly how the crust should look when it was ready to come out of the oven. I worked slowly, carefully. My hands weren't as steady as they used to be, but they remembered. Peel the sweet potatoes. Boil them until they're tender. Mash them smooth. Add the butter, the sugar, the eggs, the milk, the vanilla, the cinnamon, the nutmeg, just a pinch, not too much. Pour it into the crust I'd made from scratch the night before. Into the oven at 350 for 5 minutes exactly. While it baked, I sat at the kitchen table with my own cup of coffee and thought about the day ahead. Christmas dinner at Patricia's house. My eldest daughter had been hosting for the past 3 years, ever since she and her husband Marcus bought that big house in Riverside Estates. She'd called me last week with the details. "Mom, dinner's at 5 o'clock sharp," she'd said in that brisk, businesslike tone she'd developed since becoming a hospital administrator. "Don't be late. We're doing things differently this year, really elegant, you know. We've got it all handled." "What can I bring?" I'd asked like I did every year. There was a pause on the line. "Oh, Mom, don't worry about bringing anything. We've got it covered. Just bring yourself." But that didn't sit right with me. In 43 years of Carter family Christmases, nobody ever showed up empty-handed. It wasn't about the food. It was about the contribution, about being part of the family effort. So I decided to make my pie anyway, the one everyone always loved, the one that Patricia used to eat 3 slices of when she was a little girl. The timer went off, and I pulled the pie from the oven. Perfect. Golden brown with that slightly cracked top that meant the filling had set just right. I let it cool on the counter, admiring my work. Whatever fancy food Patricia had catered, this pie would remind everyone what Christmas was really about. Tradition, family. Love made with your own 2 hands. I got myself ready slowly, choosing the red dress I'd bought special for today, the nice pearl earrings Gerald gave me on our 30th anniversary. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw an old woman looking back. When had that happened? But my eyes were bright and I held my head high. I was Marlene Carter, retired teacher, mother of 3, grandmother of 5. I had nothing to be ashamed of. At 4:30, I carefully placed the pie in the carrier, wrapped a ribbon around it, and drove the 20 minutes to Patricia's house. The sun was already setting, casting that golden winter light across the snow-dusted lawns of Riverside Estates. Patricia's house was lit up like a magazine cover, white lights strung perfectly along the roofline, a wreath on the door that probably cost more than my weekly grocery bill. I rang the doorbell, balancing the pie carrier in my arms. Patricia answered, and I saw her face change the moment she saw what I was holding. Not happiness, not gratitude, something else, something that made my stomach tighten. "Mum," she said, not moving to let me in. "What is that, my sweet potato pie?" I said, smiling, trying to ignore the odd tone in her voice. "I know you said not to bring anything, but I couldn't show up empty-handed on Christmas." She closed her eyes for just a moment, and I heard her take a deep breath. "Come in," she finally said. The house was full of people. My son David was there with his wife Shannon and their 2 teenagers. My youngest daughter Jennifer was there with her husband Tom and their 3 kids. Marcus's parents, Patricia's in-laws, maybe 20 people in all dressed like they were going to a fancy restaurant, not a family Christmas dinner. The dining room table was set like something from a magazine. White tablecloth, silver candlesticks, china I'd never seen before. And the sideboard was covered with food. Catered food in those aluminum trays with the little flames underneath to keep things warm. Labels from Giovanni's, the expensive Italian place downtown, lasagna, calamari, stuffed shells, antipasto. Not a single traditional Christmas dish in sight. Mom brought a pie, Patricia announced to the room, her voice carrying that same strange tone. Everyone turned to look at me. David got up from the couch and I saw him exchange a glance with Jennifer. They walked over, and suddenly I was surrounded by my 3 children, all looking at me with expressions I couldn't quite read. Mom, Jennifer said slowly, like she was talking to a small child, didn't Patricia tell you this was a catered event? Everyone was assigned specific items from Giovanni's to order. My mouth went dry, she said. She said not to bring anything. Right, David said, because we had it handled. It was all coordinated, Mom. Everyone ordered what they were supposed to order. Patricia sent out a whole email about it 2 weeks ago. I felt heat rising in my face. I didn't get any email. Patricia sighed, loud enough for everyone to hear. Mom, I sent it to your email address. The one you've had for 10 years. Did you check your email? I check it every day, I said, but my voice sounded defensive even to my own ears. Well, clearly you missed it, Jennifer said. She reached out and took the pie carrier from my hands. It's okay, Mom. Don't worry about it. We all forget things sometimes. I didn't forget, I said. You told me not to bring anything, so I. And you brought something anyway. David interrupted, but he was smiling, the way you smile at someone who just doesn't understand. Even though we told you it was handled, they were all looking at me now. All 20 people in that fancy living room watching this moment unfold. And I saw it in their faces, pity. They pitied me. Maybe we can find room for it in the kitchen, Patricia said, taking the pie from Jennifer. She walked toward the kitchen, and I heard her say to someone back there, no, just put it on the counter. We won't need it. We have the tiramisu. That's when I heard the laughter. Quiet at first, then louder. Marcus's mother saying something to her husband. Jennifer's teenage daughter giggling, Shannon whispering to David. And then Patricia's voice from the kitchen, not quite quiet enough. I swear, she's getting more confused every week. I don't know how much longer she can keep living alone. The room went fuzzy for a moment. I stood there in my red dress, holding my purse, suddenly aware that I was the only person over 65 in the room. The only one who looked out of place in this designer Christmas. David touched my arm. Come sit down, Mom. Dinner's almost ready. You must be tired, tired. Confused. Forgetful. That's what I was now. I sat where they told me to sit. I ate the expensive Italian food that had nothing to do with Christmas. I watched my grandchildren open presents I'd carefully chosen and wrapped, barely looking at the tags to see who they were from. I listened to conversations I wasn't included in, about people I didn't know, about investments and renovations and vacation homes. And I smiled. I smiled through all of it because that's what you do. That's what mothers do. But inside something was cracking open. A memory. Then another. Then another. Patricia taking over my bank account 6 months ago, saying it would be easier if she managed things for me. David insisting I sign some papers about the house, saying it was just for estate planning. Jennifer asking me detailed questions about my daily routine, writing things down in that leather notebook she always carried. The doctor's appointment last month that I hadn't scheduled, where Patricia had somehow gotten them to give her access to my medical records. The time I'd caught David in my bedroom, going through my desk drawers, claiming he was looking for old family photos. The conversations that stopped when I entered rooms. I'd told myself I was being paranoid. I'd told myself they were just worried about me, just being good children. But sitting there at that Christmas table, invisible and pitied and dismissed, I finally let myself see the truth. They weren't taking care of me. They were taking over. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my bed, in the house that was supposed to be mine, staring at the ceiling and watching the headlights from passing cars sweep across the walls. The same walls I'd painted 3 times over the years. The same ceiling Gerald and I had stared at on our first night in this house, dreaming about the life we'd build here. The clock on my nightstand glowed green in the darkness. 2:17, 3:45, 4:32. Each minute felt like an hour. My mind kept replaying the evening, but now I was seeing things I'd missed before. The way Patricia had positioned herself between me and the other guests all night, as if she was managing my interactions. The way David had steered every conversation away from topics I might contribute to. The way Jennifer kept checking her phone and typing notes. About what? About me? And that comment from the kitchen, I don't know how much longer she can keep living alone. The words echoed in my head like a threat. When the sun finally started to rise, I got up and made coffee with shaking hands. I sat at my kitchen table, in my kitchen, in my house, and tried to think clearly. But thinking clearly meant facing things I'd been pushing away for months. I got up and went to my bedroom, to the desk where I kept my important papers. The desk that David had been going through. I opened the top drawer. My checkbook should have been there, it wasn't. I opened the second drawer. The folder with my insurance policies was thinner than I remembered. I pulled it out and looked through it. My life insurance policy, the one Gerald had set up that was supposed to go to the grandchildren's education fund, had a new beneficiary designation form clipped to it, dated 3 months ago, with my signature on it. Except I'd never signed it. I stared at that signature. It looked like mine, almost. But the M in Marlene was wrong, too loopy. And I always dotted my I with a small circle, a habit from my teaching days. This one had a regular dot. My hand started to shake so badly I had to put the paper down. I went to the living room where I kept my laptop, the one Jennifer had convinced me to buy last year, saying I needed to stay connected. I opened my email, my heart pounding. There was Patricia's email from 2 weeks ago right there in my inbox. Subject line, Importien. Christmas dinner details. I clicked on it. As discussed, this year's dinner is fully catered from Giovanni's. Each family has been assigned items to order, see attached list. Please do not bring any homemade dishes or outside food. This is a formal dinner and we need everything to coordinate. Mom, this means you too. Everything is handled. I read it 3 times. I had no memory of seeing this email before. But it was marked as read. Opened on December 18th at 2:47 p.m. I clicked on my sent folder and scrolled back. There from December 18th at 2:51 p.m. was a reply from my email address. Sounds lovely, I understand. See you all on Christmas. Love, Mom. I never wrote that. I would never write, sounds lovely. And I always signed my emails, love and blessings, Mom. Always, for 10 years. Someone had access to my email account. My breath was coming fast now, my chest tight. I forced myself to keep looking. I opened my bank account. The one Patricia had supposedly just been added to, in case of emergency. The balance made my stomach drop. Gerald and I had been careful our whole lives. We'd saved, we'd invested. When he died, he left me comfortable, not rich, but secure. The last time I'd actually looked at the balance, 6 months ago, there had been $73,000 in savings. Now there was $18,000. $55,000. Gone. I clicked on the transaction history with trembling fingers. Transfers. Dozens of them. Small ones at first, 500 here, 1,000 there. Then bigger. 5,000, 8,000. 12,000 all going to accounts I didn't recognize, all marked as authorized transfers. The most recent one was from 3 days ago, $10,000. Transferred to an account labeled PCA Property Holdings. Patricia Carter, Anderson. My daughter. I closed the laptop because I thought I might be sick. The room was spinning. This couldn't be real. My children wouldn't steal from me. They wouldn't forge my signature. They wouldn't hack my email and pretend to be me. But the evidence was right there, in black and white, in dollars and cents. I sat on my couch and tried to breathe. Tried to think, what was I supposed to do? Call the police? Call my children and accuse them? Call a lawyer? A lawyer? The thought crystallized in my mind. I needed help. Real help. Professional help. But I didn't know any lawyers. Gerald had used someone for the will, but that was years ago, and I couldn't even remember the name. I couldn't ask my children, obviously. I couldn't ask most of my friends because they were Patricia's age, part of her social circle, and I didn't know who I could trust anymore. I was still sitting there, paralyzed with fear and confusion, when I heard a knock at my door. I jumped, my heart racing. For a crazy moment, I thought it might be my children, coming to, what? Finish whatever they'd started. I looked through the peephole. It was Angela Morrison, my neighbor from 3 houses down. She was holding a covered dish and smiling. I opened the door, and the smile fell off her face immediately. Marlene, she said. Honey, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. And just like that, after holding it together all night, I started to cry. Angela didn't hesitate. She set the dish on my porch table, came inside, closed the door behind her, and wrapped me in her arms. She was 52 years old, strong and solid, and she held me while I sobbed like a child. Come on, she said softly, guiding me to the couch. Sit down. Tell me what happened. I didn't mean to tell her everything. I meant to just say I'd had a bad night, I was tired, I was being silly. But once I started talking I couldn't stop. Christmas dinner, the email, the bank account, the forged signature, all of it came pouring out. Angela listened without interrupting, her face growing more serious with every word. When I finally stopped talking, she sat back and looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Marlene, she said carefully, I need to tell you something. What you're describing, this isn't just your children being controlling or overprotective. This is elder financial abuse. This is a crime. The word crime hit me like cold water. No, I said automatically. They wouldn't. They're my children. And that's exactly why they think they can get away with it, Angela said. Her voice was gentle but firm. Honey, I work for a law firm. I'm a paralegal. I've seen this before. More times than you'd believe. And it almost always starts exactly like this. Taking over accounts to help, forging signatures on documents, isolating the person from friends and information, making them feel confused and incompetent. They said I was confused. I whispered. Of course they did. Because if everyone thinks you're confused, no one will believe you when you say something's wrong. Angela took my hands in hers. Marlene, listen to me. How long have you known me? 20 years, I said. Since you bought the house down the street. Since you were in my 3rd grade class. That's right. And in all those 20 years, have I ever known you to be confused? To forget important things? To not understand what's happening around you? I shook my head. You're one of the sharpest people I know, Angela said. You remember my kids' birthdays. You remember stories from 30 years ago. You balance your checkbook by hand every month. You're not confused, Marlene. You're being gaslit. That word gaslit. I'd heard it on TV, read it in articles, but never thought it could apply to me. What do? I asked, and my voice sounded small and old. Angela squeezed my hands. You fight back, and I'm going to help you. She pulled out her phone and started typing. There's a lawyer at my firm, Rebecca Stern. She specializes in elder law and she's brilliant. She's also fierce as hell when someone's been taken advantage of. She'll see you today if I ask her to. Today. It's the day after Christmas. Rebecca works when people need her, Angela said. She was already calling. Trust me on this. I listened to Angela's side of the conversation, explaining the situation in calm, professional terms that somehow made it sound both more serious and more manageable. When she hung up, she looked at me with something like satisfaction. She'll see you at 10 o'clock this morning. Her office is downtown, on Parker Street. I'll drive you. Angela, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm doing it. She stood up. Now, I want you to gather every document you can find. Bank statements, insurance policies, anything your children might have had you sign, emails, everything. Bring it all. Can you do that? I nodded, feeling something I hadn't felt since yesterday, a tiny spark of something that might have been hope. Good, Angela said. I'm going to run home and make sure my husband knows where I am. I'll be back in 20 minutes. Get yourself dressed and get those papers together. And Marlene, I looked up at her. What your children are doing to you, it's not okay. It's not normal family stuff. And you're not wrong for feeling betrayed, because this is betrayal. You understand? I nodded again, not trusting my voice. After Angela left, I moved like a woman on a mission. I gathered every bank statement I could find. The insurance documents. The papers David had me sign. I found the checkbook that had been lost. It was in Patricia's purse, which she'd left here after a visit last month. I printed out the email exchanges. I made a list of every strange thing that had happened over the past year. By the time Angela came back, I had a folder 2 inches thick. I'd also changed out of my nightgown and into a nice pantsuit. I'd done my hair and put on lipstick. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw, not an old confused woman, but Marlene Carter, teacher, mother, widow, fighter. If my children wanted a fight, they were going to get one. Because I'd spent 40 years teaching children right from wrong, and it was time my own children learned that lesson. Rebecca Stern's office was nothing like I expected. I'd been imagining some sterile corporate space with glass walls and uncomfortable modern furniture. Instead, Angela led me into a converted Victorian house on Parker Street, with a wraparound porch and flower boxes in the windows. Inside, it was warm and welcoming, hardwood floors, comfortable chairs, and walls lined with bookshelves. A receptionist who looked about 30 greeted us with a genuine smile. Ms. Morrison. Miss Carter, Rebecca's expecting you. Go right on back. Second door on the left. We walked down a hallway lined with framed photographs. I noticed they weren't the typical lawyer photos of handshakes and certificates. These were pictures of older people, smiling, laughing, hugging their families. Some had captions, "Justice at last," "Home safe," "Free again." The second door was open, and a woman stood up from behind her desk as we entered. Rebecca Stern was not what I expected either. She was maybe 50, with silver-streaked dark hair pulled back in a simple bun, glasses on a chain around her neck, and a no-nonsense expression that reminded me of myself on the first day of school every year. She was wearing slacks and a cardigan, not a business suit. She looked like someone's aunt. Someone's very smart, very focused aunt. "Marlene," she said, coming around the desk with her hand extended. "I'm Rebecca. Thank you for trusting me with this." Her handshake was firm and warm. She gestured to a comfortable couch along the wall, not the formal chairs in front of her desk. We all sat down, and she pulled a legal pad onto her lap. "Before we start," Rebecca said, looking directly at me, "I want to make something clear. Everything you tell me today is confidential. Angela has explained the basics, but I need to hear it from you in your own words. And I need you to know that nothing you say will sound crazy or paranoid or confused to me. I've been doing this work for 23 years. I know what elder financial abuse looks like, and I know the people who commit it are usually the last people anyone would suspect. Okay? I felt something tight in my chest start to loosen. Okay, good. Now start wherever feels right, take your time. So I told her. Everything, the whole story, starting with Gerald's death 7 years ago and ending with this morning's discovery of the forged signature and the missing money. I showed her the documents I'd brought. I showed her the email. I showed her the bank statements. Rebecca listened without interrupting, taking notes in neat, precise handwriting. Her expression didn't change. No shock, no disbelief, just focused attention. When I finished, she sat back and looked at me with something that might have been sadness. "Marlene, I'm so sorry this is happening to you," she said quietly. "But I want you to know. You did exactly the right thing by coming here today. And I want you to understand something important. None of this is your fault." But I signed papers without reading them carefully enough. I said, "I let Patricia have access to my accounts. Because you trusted your daughter," Rebecca interrupted gently. "That's not a weakness. That's what parents do. What's happening to you is not because you did something wrong. It's because your children chose to betray that trust." She leaned forward, her elbows on her knees. "Here's what I see in these documents. First, clear evidence of financial exploitation. $55,000 transferred without your knowledge or genuine consent. Second, forgery, that life insurance beneficiary form. Third, possible identity theft with the email access. Fourth, what we call undue influence, using their position as your children to pressure you into signing documents you didn't fully understand." She flipped through her notes. "The comment about you not being able to live alone much longer is particularly concerning. Angela mentioned they've been making you feel confused and forgetful." "Less," I said. "At the Christmas dinner, they made it seem like I was losing my memory. But I wasn't. They just didn't tell me about the catered dinner." "Classic gaslighting," Rebecca said. "Making you doubt your own mind, your own memory. And I'm willing to bet that's not the first time. Can you think of other instances?" I thought back. Last month, Patricia insisted I'd agreed to let David's company handle selling my house someday. She said we'd talked about it extensively. But I never agreed to anything like that. When I said so, she looked at David and Jennifer with this look, like, "See what I mean?" Like I was the one who was wrong. Rebecca wrote something down. "And the forged signature on the life insurance form, who does it benefit now?" I looked at the paper. It says, "Patricia Carter, Anderson, 100%. Used to be the grandchildren's education fund." Yes, Gerald was very specific about that. "So they changed your husband's wishes, forged your signature, and made your daughter the sole beneficiary of a policy that's probably worth, what would you estimate?" $250,000, I whispered. Rebecca nodded grimly. "This isn't small time, Marlene. This is systematic, planned financial exploitation. And I'm very concerned about what comes next." "What do you mean?" She set down her pad and looked at me seriously. "In my experience, when adult children do this to an elderly parent, they usually have an end game. They're not just taking money, they're building towards something. And that comment about you not being able to live alone, that's often a precursor to guardianship." Guardianship. It's a legal process where the court appoints someone to make decisions for a person who's deemed incapable of making their own decisions. If your children can convince a judge that you're mentally incompetent, they could have you declared your own guardian. Which means they'd control everything: your money, your house, your medical care, where you live. You'd have no legal rights. You'd essentially become their property. The room tilted. They could do that. If they have the right documentation, if they've been laying the groundwork. Making you seem confused to doctors, to friends, in writing. Yes, it's not easy, but it happens more than you'd think. And the fact that they've already forged your signature tells me they're willing to falsify documents. I felt Angela's hand grip mine. "But here's the good news," Rebecca continued. "You came to me before they filed anything. You're clearly competent. You noticed the discrepancies. You documented everything. You sought help. That's the opposite of incompetence. And we can stop this. But we need to move fast and we need to be strategic." "What do?" I asked. Rebecca picked up her phone. "First, I'm going to have my assistant draft emergency documents. We'll revoke every power of attorney they might have, even ones you don't remember signing. We'll put a freeze on your bank accounts so no more money can be transferred. We'll file for an emergency protective order if necessary." She started typing notes on her computer. "Second, we document everything. I want you to write down every instance of coercion, every strange comment, every time they made you feel incompetent. Dates, witnesses, everything you can remember. Third, we're going to file a report with Adult Protective Services. This is criminal elder abuse, and it needs to be investigated. We'll also contact the district attorney's office. Financial exploitation of the elderly is a felony in this state. My stomach churned. You mean, my children could go to jail? Rebecca's expression softened. Marlene, I know this is hard. These are your children. You love them. But what they're doing to you is a crime. It's not a family disagreement or a misunderstanding. It's theft, forgery, and fraud. And if we don't stop them now, it will get worse. How much worse could it get? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. I've seen cases where the elderly parent ends up in a locked memory care facility they don't need, completely cut off from friends and family, while their children sell their house, drain their accounts, and wait for them to die, Rebecca said bluntly. I've seen children who've stolen millions. I've seen parents who signed away everything and ended up homeless. I've seen elder abuse that borders on torture. She paused. I'm not saying that's where this is headed. But I am saying the pattern I'm seeing here is serious. Your children have already stolen $55,000, forged legal documents, and are working to make you seem incompetent. This doesn't get better on its own. I thought about Patricia's house, the one she bought 3 years ago that seemed too expensive for her salary. I thought about David's expanding real estate business. I thought about Jennifer's designer clothes and luxury vacations. I thought about my money paying for all of it. What do you need me to do? I asked. Rebecca smiled for the first time since I'd arrived. I need you to be brave. I need you to trust me. And I need you to understand that standing up to your children is not betraying them. It's teaching them that there are consequences for doing wrong. You were a teacher for 40 years. This is just a different kind of lesson. She stood up and held out her hand. So here's what happens now. You and I are going to go to your bank together, today. We're going to freeze your accounts and open new ones they have no access to. We're going to go to the police station and file a report. We're going to document everything and file the appropriate legal motions. And then, she said, her eyes sharp behind her glasses, we're going to invite your children to a meeting. A come to Jesus meeting, as my mother used to say, where they have a choice, make this right or face the full legal consequences of what they've done. Do you think they'll make it right? I asked quietly. Rebecca tilted her head. In my experience, some will, some won't. The ones who are capable of remorse and change will see this as a wake-up call. The ones who are too far gone will choose their own interests over you. Either way, you'll know who your children really are, and you'll be protected. She put her hand on my shoulder. You're not alone in this anymore, Marlene. I've got your back. Angela's got your back. And the law, when we use it right, has your back too. I stood up, feeling steadier than I had in months. Maybe years. There's one more thing, I said. Christmas dinner. The way they humiliated me in front of everyone. The way they laughed. I want them to know. I want them to understand that was the moment they went too far. Rebecca's smile turned a bit fierce. Oh, they'll know. Trust me. By the time we're done, everyone who was at that Christmas dinner is going to know exactly what your children did. And they're going to know that you brought a lawyer the next day. We spent the next 4 hours in action. At the bank, the manager's face went pale as Rebecca explained the situation. The accounts were frozen within 15 minutes, new ones opened in my name only with new passwords and security questions. At the police station, a detective named Williams took my statement. He was young, maybe 35, but he listened carefully and took notes. When I showed him the forged signature, he nodded grimly. This is enough for us to open an investigation, he said. Mom, I want you to know. What happened to you happens more than people think. You're doing the right thing by reporting it. By the time Angela drove me home, the sun was setting. I was exhausted, wrung out, but also something else. I was awake. Maybe for the first time in a year I was fully, completely awake. My phone had been ringing all afternoon. 6 missed calls from Patricia, 4 from David, 3 from Jennifer, 2 voicemails, 5 text messages. I didn't listen to any of them. Instead, I made myself a cup of tea and sat at my kitchen table with the list Rebecca had asked me to make. Every instance of manipulation, every strange comment, every warning sign I'd ignored. The list was 3 pages long by the time I finished. My phone rang again, Patricia. I watched it ring and go to voicemail. Then a text. Mom, we need to talk. Call me back, it's important. I turned off my phone. Tomorrow they would get a letter from Rebecca Stern, attorney at law. A letter informing them that I knew what they'd done. That I had documented everything. That they had 1 week to return every penny they'd stolen and submit to a full accounting, or face criminal charges. Tomorrow, the fight would really begin. But tonight, I allowed myself to feel something I hadn't let myself feel in 7 years. I felt proud of myself. Gerald would have been proud too. I woke up on December 27th feeling like a different person. For the first time in months, I'd slept through the night, deep. Dreamless sleep that left me rested instead of anxious. I made my coffee, ate my breakfast, and sat at my kitchen table with a clarity I hadn't felt in a long time. My phone was still off. I knew there would be more calls, more texts, more demands for explanations. But Rebecca had been clear, don't talk to them. Not yet. Anything you say can be twisted, misinterpreted, or used against you. Let the legal documents speak first. At 9 o'clock my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw a courier in a brown uniform, holding a clipboard and a large envelope. Certified letter for Marlene Carter, he said when I opened the door. Need your signature. I signed, though my hand trembled slightly. The envelope was from Rebecca's office. Inside was a thick packet of documents, with a note on top in Rebecca's neat handwriting, Marlene, these are your copies. The originals have been filed with the appropriate offices. Your children will receive their letters via certified mail today by 2 p.m. Detective Williams has the police copies. You are now legally protected. Call me if you need anything. You're doing great. Rebecca. I spread the documents across my kitchen table and read through them slowly. The first was a revocation of all powers of attorney. It stated, in clear legal language, that any and all authority I had previously granted to Patricia Carter, Anderson David Carter, or Jennifer Carter, Brooks was hereby revoked, effective immediately. They had no authority to access my accounts, sign documents on my behalf, or make any decisions for me. The second was a notice of financial exploitation and demand for restitution. This one was longer, more detailed. It listed every unauthorized transfer from my accounts, totaling $55,412. It demanded full restitution within 30 days. It stated that failure to comply would result in criminal prosecution for elder financial abuse, theft, and forgery. The third document was what Rebecca called a protective order application. It hadn't been filed yet. Rebecca said she was holding it in reserve, but it was ready to go if my children tried to contact me, intimidate me, or access my property without permission. The fourth was a letter addressed to my children jointly. This was the one that made my hands shake as I read it. Dear Ms. Carter, Anderson, Mr. Carter, and Ms. Carter, Brooks, this office represents your mother, Marlene Carter, in matters related to financial exploitation and elder abuse. Mrs. Carter has retained our services after discovering substantial unauthorized withdrawals from her accounts, forged signatures on legal documents, and a systematic pattern of manipulation and coercion. Please be advised that all powers of attorney have been revoked. You no longer have any legal authority to access Mrs. Carter's financial accounts, medical records, or personal property. Any attempt to do so will be considered criminal trespass and harassment. An investigation has been opened by the County Sheriff's Department's Case Fay 2024-7743 regarding allegations of financial exploitation of an elderly person, Penal Code of 368, theft by false pretense, Penal Code of 484, forgeries, Penal Code of 47, identity theft, Penal Code in 530.5. These are felony charges carrying penalties of 2 to 4 years in state prison and restitution of up to 3 times the amount stolen. However, Mrs. Carter wishes to offer you one opportunity to resolve this matter without criminal prosecution. You are invited to attend a meeting at our office on January 2, 2025 at 10:00 a.m. At this meeting you will be required to provide a full accounting of all funds taken from Mrs. Carter's accounts. 2. Return all funds with interest within 30 days. 3. Submit to a forensic audit of any documents bearing Mrs. Carter's signature. 4. Participate in mandatory counseling for financial abuse. 5. Sign a legally binding agreement that you will have no further access to Mrs. Carter's finances. If you choose to attend this meeting and comply with the above requirements, Mrs. Carter may consider not pressing criminal charges. If you choose not to attend, or if you refuse to make full restitution, this matter will be turned over to the District Attorney's Office for prosecution. Do not contact Mrs. Carter directly. All communication must go through this office. Sincerely, Rebecca Stern S., Elder Law Specialist. I read it 3 times, my heart pounding harder each time. This was real. This was happening. In less than a week, I would be sitting across from my 3 children, confronting them with evidence of their crimes, and giving them a choice: make it right, or go to jail. The doorbell rang again around 11 o'clock. I looked through the peephole and saw Angela with a bag of groceries. Thought you might not feel like going out today, she said when I opened the door. So I brought lunch. Also, Rebecca called me. The letters are being delivered as we speak. We made sandwiches and sat at my kitchen table. I showed her the documents and she read through them with the practiced eye of someone who worked with legal papers every day. This is solid, she said. Rebecca doesn't mess around. Your kids are going to panic when they get these. Good? I said, and I was surprised by the steel in my own voice. How are you feeling? Angela asked gently. I thought about it. Scared. Sad, angry. But also, free. Does that make sense? Perfect sense, Angela said. You've been carrying this weight for months, thinking something was wrong but not letting yourself believe it. Now you know the truth. The truth is terrible, but at least it's the truth. My old phone, the one I turned off, started buzzing on the counter. Then my doorbell rang, then my home phone rang, all at once. Angela and I looked at each other. "That'll be the letters arriving," she said. "Right on schedule." The doorbell rang again. More insistent this time, then knocking, then Patricia's voice. Mom, I know you're in there. We need to talk about this ridiculous letter from some lawyer." "Don't answer," Angela said quietly. The knocking got louder. "Mom, this is insane." "You're letting some stranger turn you against your own family." "Open the door." I sat frozen at my kitchen table, my sandwich halfway to my mouth. "Mom." Now it was David's voice too. "What the hell is going on? We just got served with legal papers accusing us of crimes. You can't seriously believe, Mom." "Open this door." They came together, I whispered. "All three of them." "Of course they did," Angela said. "They're panicking. Their plan is falling apart." The doorbell rang over and over. My cell phone buzzed with incoming texts. I could see the notifications lighting up the screen even though the phone was off. My home phone kept ringing. Then Jennifer's voice, and she sounded like she was crying. "Mom, please! We love you! We're just trying to help you!" "That lawyer is lying to you, manipulating you?" This is what elder abuse looks like. People taking advantage of confused seniors, turning them against their families. I felt Angela's hand on my arm. "Don't listen. That's gaslighting. That's exactly what abusers do when they get caught. They flip the script and make themselves the victims." The voices outside got louder, overlapping each other. I heard Patricia on her phone. "Yes, I need to report elder abuse. My mother is being manipulated by a predatory lawyer. No, she's not competent to make these decisions. She's calling Adult Protective Services on you." Angela said, her eyes wide. "She's trying to get you declared incompetent." My stomach dropped. Can she do that? She can try. But Rebecca anticipated this. That's why she had you documented by Detective Williams. You gave a clear, coherent statement. You acted rationally. You sought appropriate legal help. No judge is going to declare you incompetent based on that. The knocking stopped suddenly. Then I heard Patricia's voice. Sharp and clear. "Fine. If you won't talk to us, we'll talk to your lawyer. But Mom, when you realize what you've done, when you realize you've destroyed this family over nothing, over a misunderstanding, don't come crying to us. You're making the biggest mistake of your life." Footsteps on my porch. Car doors slamming. Engine starting. Then silence. I sat there shaking, tears running down my face. "You did the right thing," Angela said firmly. "You stayed strong. You didn't let them manipulate you." "They hate me now," I whispered. "No," Angela said. "They're angry because they got caught. That's different. If they really loved you, they wouldn't have stolen from you in the first place." My phone buzzed with a new call. "Rebecca's office." "Ems, Carter, this is Rebecca. I just got a very interesting call from your daughter Patricia's attorney. Apparently she's retained legal counsel." "That was fast," I said, my voice shaky. "It means she's taking this seriously." "Good." Her lawyer, a man named Marcus Whitfield, suggested we should talk reasonably before this gets out of hand. I told him it's already out of hand, and the meeting is scheduled for January 2nd. He tried to negotiate. I shut that down. "The terms are non-negotiable." "Patricia called Adult Protective Services," I said. "She tried to report me as being manipulated." There was a pause. "Did she? Well, that's actually helpful for our case. It shows consciousness of guilt. She's so desperate to discredit you that she's filing false reports. I'll document that. Don't worry, Marlene. I've already spoken with APS. They're aware of the situation. If they do a welfare check, they'll see you're fine." "What happens now?" I ask. "Now we wait. We see who shows up to the meeting on January 2nd. In my experience, you'll get one of three reactions. Some will show up ready to fight and deny everything. Some will show up ready to negotiate and minimize. And some, if you're lucky, will show up ready to admit what they did and make it right. Which one do you think my children will be?" Rebecca was quiet for a moment. Based on Patricia's immediate response, hiring a lawyer, calling APS, trying to flip the narrative. She's going to fight. David's harder to read. He might follow Patricia's lead, or he might crack under pressure. Jennifer, your youngest. Sometimes the youngest is the conscience of the group. She might surprise you. After I hung up, Angela made tea and we sat together in silence for a long time. "You know what's strange?" I finally said. "I thought I'd feel worse. I thought confronting them would break me. But I feel stronger? Because you're taking your power back?" Angela said. "They've been making you feel weak and confused for months. But you're not weak. You never were." That night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went through old photo albums. Pictures of Patricia as a baby, gap-toothed and grinning. David learning to ride a bike. Gerald running behind him. Jennifer in her graduation gown, her whole life ahead of her. I looked at those pictures and tried to find the moment when they changed. When did these children, these babies I'd loved and raised and sacrificed for, become people who would steal from me? Who would forge my signature? Who would try to have me declared incompetent so they could control my life? Or had they always been capable of this, and I just never wanted to see it? I thought about something Rebecca had said. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is let them face the consequences of their actions. Otherwise, they never learn. They never change. I'd been a teacher for 40 years. I'd taught thousands of children about right and wrong, about consequences, about integrity. Maybe it was time to teach my own children that same lesson. Even if it broke my heart to do it, I closed the photo albums and went to bed. Tomorrow was December 28th. 5 days until the meeting. 5 days until I found out who my children really were. The next few days passed in a strange blur of silence and activity. My children stopped coming to my door, but they didn't stop trying. My home phone rang constantly. I unplugged it on the second day. My cell phone filled with texts I didn't read. My email inbox flooded with messages that all started the same way. Mom, we need to talk. Mom, you're making a terrible mistake. Mom, that lawyer is using you. On December 28th, a flower delivery arrived. 24 roses with a card that said, "We'll love you, Mom. Please call us. Your children." I gave the flowers to Angela. On December 29th, a priest from St. Michael's showed up at my door. Father Bennett, a young man I'd never met before. "Mrs. Carter," he said gently, "your daughter Patricia asked me to check on you. She's very worried. She says you're going through something difficult and you might need spiritual guidance." I looked at this young priest, barely 30 years old, and saw the genuine concern in his eyes. He didn't know. Patricia had weaponized even the church. "Father," I said calmly, "I appreciate your concern, but I'm fine. What I'm going through is standing up to people who've been stealing from me. I don't need spiritual guidance for that. I need a lawyer." Which I have. His face changed, surprise, then understanding, then discomfort. I wasn't told that was the situation. "You didn't know," I said, "but now you do. And Father, you might want to have a conversation with Patricia about bearing false witness." He left looking troubled. I felt bad for him, but I also felt a grim satisfaction. Patricia was getting desperate, calling in reinforcements, trying to use every relationship and institution she could to make me back down. It wouldn't work. On December 30th, Rebecca called with news. "I've received responses from the attorneys representing your children," she said. Patricia's lawyer, Marcus Whitfield, sent a 5-page letter claiming this is all a misunderstanding, that Patricia has detailed records of every transaction, and that you verbally authorized everything. He's threatening to countersue for defamation and emotional distress. My stomach clenched. Can he do that? He can threaten anything he wants. Actually proving it is different. And his letter is interesting. It's very defensive, very detailed. People who are innocent don't usually need 5 pages to explain themselves. Also, he claims Patricia has records of verbal authorization. That's not how financial transactions work. Verbal authorization isn't enough for transfers of this size. We need written consent, and we both know those signatures were forged. What about David and Jennifer? David's lawyer, a real estate attorney, which tells me something, sent a brief letter saying David had no knowledge of any improprieties and has been added to the lawsuit unfairly. He's trying to distance himself from Patricia. And Jennifer? Rebecca paused. Jennifer hasn't retained an attorney. Or if she has, they haven't contacted me. That's interesting. What does it mean? It could mean several things. She might be still looking for representation. She might not have the money for a lawyer, though I doubt that, given her income. Or she might be having second thoughts. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Jennifer, my baby. The one who used to crawl into bed with me during thunderstorms. The one who cried when she had to leave for college because she'd miss me too much. How had that little girl become someone who would steal from her own mother? On December 31st, New Year's Eve, Angela invited me to spend the evening with her family. "We're just doing a quiet thing," she said. "Dinner, board games, watch the ball drop on TV, nothing fancy. But I don't want you alone tonight." I almost said no. I'd spent every New Year's Eve for the past 7 years alone, and I'd survived. But something about this year felt different. This year I didn't want to be alone. Angela's house was warm and loud and full of life. Her husband Marcus, not to be confused with Patricia's lawyer, thankfully welcomed me with a hug. Their 2 teenagers, Jasmine and Michael, treated me like the grandmother I was supposed to be, asking about my day, showing me their Christmas presents, including me in their jokes. We ate pot roast and mashed potatoes. We played Scrabble and I won 2 games out of 3. We watched old movies and ate popcorn. And when midnight approached, we all gathered around the TV to watch the countdown. 10, 9, 8. I thought about the year that was ending, the betrayal, the discovery, the loiter. 7, 6, 5. I thought about the meeting in 2 days, the confrontation, the choice my children would make. 4, 3, 2. I thought about Gerald, about how he would have handled this. He would have been heartbroken, but he would have been proud of me for standing up for myself. Happy New Year. Everyone hugged and cheered. Jasmine hugged me tight and whispered, Happy New Year, Mispered. Marlene. This is going to be your year. I can feel it. I hugged her back, this beautiful girl who wasn't my granddaughter but felt like family anyway, and let myself believe it might be true. When Angela drove me home around 1 in the morning, my porch light was on. I'd left it that way, but there was something on my doorstep. An envelope. Plain white, no markings. My name written on it in handwriting I recognized immediately. Jennifer's handwriting. Want me to come in with you? Angela asked. No, I said. I need to read this alone. Inside, I made tea I didn't drink and sat at my kitchen table with that envelope in front of me for 10 minutes before I finally opened it. The letter inside was 2 pages handwritten, with several crossed-out words and tear stains that had made the ink run in places. Dear Mom, I don't know if you'll read this. I don't know if you'll forgive me. I don't even know if I deserve forgiveness. But I need to try to explain. I'm not going to make excuses. What we did was wrong. It was theft. It was betrayal. It was everything you taught us never to be, and I did it anyway. It started small. 3 years ago, Patricia said you'd told her she could borrow some money from your account for her house down payment. She said you'd agreed but forgot to sign the authorization, so she just did the transfer herself. She said you wouldn't mind because it was family helping family. I believed her. Or I wanted to believe her. Then there were other transfers. David needed money for his business. Patricia needed money for renovations. I needed money when Tom lost his job for 6 months and we were drowning in bills. Patricia said you wouldn't want us to struggle when you had money just sitting there. She said we'd pay it back. We always meant to pay it back. But we never did, and the amounts got bigger. And Patricia kept saying you were getting forgetful, that you wouldn't notice, that we were actually doing you a favor by managing your money before you made bad decisions with it. I knew it was wrong. I bawed Mom. But I let myself believe Patricia's version of things, because it was easier than admitting what we were really doing. The life insurance form, that was all Patricia. She forged your signature. I didn't know about it until after it was done, and when I found out, I should have said something. I should have stopped her. But I was scared. I was ashamed. And I was already in so deep that speaking up would mean admitting everything. At Christmas dinner, when Patricia orchestrated that whole thing to make you look confused, I felt sick. I almost said something then. But David gave me this look that said, don't you dare, and I chickened out. When I got the letter from your lawyer yesterday, my first feeling was relief. Because someone finally stopped us. Someone finally said what we were doing was wrong and there would be consequences. Tom asked me why I wasn't panicking like Patricia and David. I told him the truth, because Mom was right to do this. Because we deserve whatever happens. Because I'd rather go to jail than keep living with what we've done to you. Patricia called a meeting tonight, New Year's Eve, at her house. She wanted us to strategize about how to fight back, how to prove you're incompetent, how to protect ourselves. She has this whole plan involving getting doctors to say you're declining, finding people who'll testify that you're confused, even moving to have you committed if necessary. I told her I won't be part of it. She said I'm betraying the family. David said I'm being weak. They said if I don't stand with them, they'll cut me off, tell everyone I'm the one who stole from you, make sure I go down alone. I told them to do whatever they have to do, because I'm done lying. Mom, I know saying sorry isn't enough. Sorry doesn't give back the money we stole. Sorry doesn't undo the pain we caused. Sorry doesn't erase the fact that I looked you in the eye at Christmas dinner and let you be humiliated. But I am sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know if you'll want to see me at the meeting on January 2nd. I don't know if you'll ever want to see me again. But I'm going to be there. And I'm going to tell the truth, all of it. I'm going to show your lawyer every transfer I know about. I'm going to testify about the forgery. I'm going to explain exactly how Patricia manipulated all of us into thinking this was okay. And I'm going to find a way to pay you back, even if it takes me the rest of my life. You taught me that the hardest thing to do is usually the right thing to do. You taught me that real love means accountability. You taught me that families should protect each other, not prey on each other. I forgot those lessons. But I'm remembering them now. I love you, Mom. I know I don't deserve your love back, but I love you anyway. Jennifer, P.S. Please be careful. Patricia is spiraling. She's talking about drastic measures. I don't think she'd hurt you physically, but I don't know anymore. I don't know who she is anymore. Please keep your doors locked and your phone close. I read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face. My baby, my youngest, the one I worried about most because she was so soft-hearted, so easily influenced. She'd found her spine after all. I picked up my phone and for the first time in 5 days, I sent a text message to one of my children, Jennifer. I read your letter. Thank you for your honesty. I'll see you on January 2nd. Stay strong. I love you. Mom, the response came 30 seconds later. I love you too. I'm so sorry. Thank you for not giving up on me. I set down my phone and let myself cry. Not just tears of grief this time, but also tears of something that felt almost like hope. Maybe not all of my children were lost. Maybe one of them could still be saved. Maybe redemption was possible after all. I went to bed that night, the first night of 2025, and slept better than I had in months. Tomorrow was January 1st, one more day until the meeting that would decide everything. One more day until I found out who my children really were. And now I knew that at least one of them, was still the person I'd raised her to be. It wasn't much. But it was something, and sometimes something is enough. January 2nd dawned cold and clear. I woke at 5:30, too anxious to sleep. I made coffee, ate toast I didn't taste, and changed clothes 3 times before settling on a navy blue dress with a pearl necklace. The one Gerald bought me for our 25th anniversary. I wanted to look dignified, strong, like someone who knew exactly what she was doing, even though my hands were shaking. Angela arrived at 9 o'clock to drive me to Rebecca's office. The meeting was at 10, but Rebecca wanted me there early to prepare. How are you feeling? Angela asked as we drove through the quiet streets. Terrified, I said honestly. What if they don't come? What if they do come but they fight me on everything? What if you just take it one moment at a time? Angela said gently. You don't have to know how the whole day will go. You just have to walk in there and tell the truth. Rebecca was waiting for us in her office, along with a man I didn't recognize. He was about 40, wearing a suit, with kind eyes and a legal pad. Marlene, this is James Chen, Rebecca said. He's a forensic accountant I've brought in to review the financial records. James, this is my client Marlene Carter. We shook hands, and James gave me a reassuring smile. Mrs. Carter, I've reviewed your bank statements and the transfer records. The evidence is very clear. You have a strong case. Rebecca gestured to the conference room. Let's go over what's going to happen today. We're meeting in there. It's a large conference room with a table that seats 12. I'll be at one end with you on my right. James will be on your left. Angela can sit behind you if you'd like the support. I would, I said. Good. Your children will sit at the other end of the table with their attorneys, if they bring them. Detective Williams will be present as an observer, which is standard in these cases. A court reporter will be recording everything, which protects everyone. My stomach clenched. A court reporter? It's actually in your favor, Rebecca explained. Everything said today will be documented. If your children make admissions, we have them on record. If they make threats, we have them on record. It keeps everyone honest. She looked at me seriously. Marlene, I need to prepare you for what might happen. Your children may be hostile. They may say hurtful things. They may try to manipulate you emotionally, crying, expressing love, making promises. Patricia, especially, may try to take control of the room. What do? You listen. You stay calm. You let me handle the legal aspects. If you need to speak, you can. But you're not required to defend yourself or explain yourself. The evidence speaks for itself. Understood. I nodded, not trusting my voice. At 9:50, Rebecca's assistant came to the door. They're arriving. My heart started pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. We walked to the conference room. It was just as Rebecca described, large, professional, with a long wooden table and tall windows overlooking the street. There was water, coffee, and tissues on a side table. The court reporter, a woman in her 50s, was already setting up her equipment. Detective Williams stood when we entered. He was in plain clothes, but his badge was visible on his belt. Mrs. Carter? He said with a respectful nod. I sat down in the chair Rebecca indicated, Angela behind me, James to my left. Rebecca took her place at the head of the table, arranging her documents with calm precision. Then the door opened, and my children walked in. Patricia came first, wearing a designer suit and her boardroom face. The expression she used when she wanted to intimidate people. Behind her was a man in his 60s with silver hair and an expensive suit. Her attorney, I assumed. David came next, looking uncomfortable in a button-down shirt and slacks. His attorney was younger, nervous-looking, carrying an overstuffed briefcase. And then Jennifer, alone, no attorney. Wearing a simple black dress, no makeup, her eyes red and swollen like she'd been crying. Our eyes met across the room, and something passed between us. Apology. Acknowledgement, love. Patricia's eyes swept over me with an expression I couldn't read, then landed on Rebecca with clear hostility. Let's get this over with. Please sit, Rebecca said evenly. They sat at the opposite end of the table. Patricia in the middle, her attorney beside her. David and his attorney to her right. Jennifer to her left, an empty chair between her and Patricia that spoke volumes. Thank you all for coming, Rebecca began. I'm Rebecca Stern, representing Marlene Carter. This is James Chen, forensic accountant, and Detective Williams from the County Sheriff's Department. Everything said today is being recorded by our court reporter, Miss Sullivan. Patricia's attorney leaned forward. Marcus Whitfield, Representing Patricia Carter Anderson. Before we begin, I want to state for the record that my client denies all allegations. The so-called unauthorized transfers were made with Mrs. Carter's full knowledge and verbal consent. We have documentation to support this. We'll get to that, Rebecca said coolly. But first, let me outline why we're here. Mrs. Carter has evidence of $55,412 transferred from her accounts without her written authorization. She has evidence of a forged signature on a life insurance beneficiary form. She has evidence of email access and identity theft. These are felonies under state law. That's absolutely. Patricia started, but her attorney put a hand on her arm. My client maintains her innocence, Whitfield said smoothly. However, in the interest of family harmony and avoiding unnecessary legal expenses, we're willing to discuss a reasonable settlement. There is no settlement, Rebecca said flatly. This meeting has one purpose: to give your clients the opportunity to make full restitution and avoid criminal prosecution. The terms are non-negotiable. David's attorney cleared his throat. My client, Mr. Carter, had minimal involvement in these matters. He shouldn't be held responsible for. Your client, James Chen interrupted, opening a file, received 12 transfers totaling $18,700 from Mrs. Carter's account over the past 18 months. The most recent was 3 weeks ago. Would you like to see the records? David's face went red. His attorney shuffled papers nervously. Rebecca looked at each of my children in turn. Here's how this will work. I'm going to present the evidence. You're going to have the opportunity to respond. Then we're going to discuss restitution. If you agree to our terms, we'll execute a settlement agreement today and criminal charges will be held in abeyance pending full repayment. If you don't agree, Detective Williams will be filing formal charges by end of business today. She opened her first folder. Let's start with the bank transfers. For the next hour, Rebecca and James systematically presented the evidence. Every transfer with dates and amounts. Screenshots of my email account showing the forged messages. The life insurance form with the signature analysis showing it was not my handwriting. Timestamps showing account access when I was probably somewhere else. Patricia sat stone-faced through most of it, occasionally whispering to her attorney. David looked more and more uncomfortable, his face sweating despite the cool room. Jennifer sat with her head down, tears dripping onto the table. When Rebecca finished, she sat back. That's the evidence. Would anyone like to respond? Whitfield stood. This is circumstantial at best. My client can explain every single transferred. Then let her explain, Rebecca said. Under oath, on the record. Starting with the forged signature on the life insurance form. There was a long silence. Patricia finally spoke, her voice tight with controlled anger. This is ridiculous. Mom, you know I was just trying to help you. You were getting confused, forgetting things. I was protecting you from making bad decisions. Everything I did was for your own good. Is that why you forged her signature? Rebecca asked quietly. I didn't forge anything. She signed that form. She just doesn't remember. The signature analysis says otherwise. Patricia's composure cracked slightly. Mom, please. Tell them. Tell them you asked me to help manage your money. Tell them you knew about the transfers. I looked at my eldest daughter, my firstborn, the one I'd held in my arms 35 years ago and promised to love forever, and I saw a stranger. I never asked you to take $55,000 from me, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I never signed that insurance form. I never gave you permission to access my email or make me look confused in front of the whole family at Christmas dinner. Patricia's eyes went cold. You're making a mistake. You're destroying this family over money. Over a misunderstanding. This isn't a misunderstanding, I said. This is theft. And you know it. You're incompetent. Patricia suddenly shouted, standing up. You can't even manage your own finances. That lawyer has manipulated you, turned you against your own children. Someone needs to protect you from yourself. Detective Williams stood. Anderson, I need you to sit down. This is insane. Patricia turned to David. Say something. Tell her this is crazy. David looked at his hands. I think we should hear what they're offering. What? Patricia stared at him in disbelief. David's attorney leaned forward. What exactly are the terms of restitution? Rebecca pulled out another document. Full repayment of $55,412 plus interest within 30 days. A forensic audit of all financial interactions with Mrs. Carter over the past 5 years, at your expense. Mandatory counseling for financial abuse. A legally binding agreement that you will have no access to Mrs. Carter's finances, medical decisions, or living arrangements in the future. And a public apology. A public apology. Whitfield scoffed. That's vindictive. No, I said, finding my voice. That's accountability. You humiliated me at Christmas dinner in front of 20 people. You made me feel confused and stupid and worthless. You owe me an apology, and you owe one to everyone who witnessed that. Patricia laughed, but it was a harsh, bitter sound. You want me to apologize for trying to help you, for caring about you. I want you to apologize for stealing from me, I said, my voice stronger now. For lying to me. For betraying me. For treating me like I was nothing more than a bank account to drain. I won't do it, Patricia said flatly. I won't apologize for something I didn't do wrong. I won't pay back money that was used to help the family. And I certainly won't sit here and be accused of crimes by my own mother. She grabbed her purse. Come on, David, we're leaving. But David didn't move. Patricia, maybe we should consider? Consider what? Letting Mom ruin us. Letting this lawyer extort us. It's not extortion if we actually took the money, David said quietly. Patricia's face went white, then red. You're weak, you're both weak. She looked at Jennifer. And you. I know you wrote to her. I know you betrayed us. Jennifer finally looked up, her face blotchy from crying. I didn't betray you. You betrayed Mom, and I'm done pretending it was okay. She stood up and walked around the table to where I sat. She knelt down beside my chair, tears streaming down her face. Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I took $11,000. I have records of every transfer. I'll pay it all back with interest, whatever it takes. I'll go to counseling. I'll do whatever you and Miss Stern want me to do. I'm so sorry. I put my hand on her head, like I used to when she was little and woke up from nightmares. I know, baby, I know. Patricia made a disgusted sound. This is pathetic. Jennifer, you're making a fool of yourself. No, Jennifer said, standing up but staying next to me. I made a fool of myself when I stole from my own mother. This is me trying to be better. Rebecca slid a document across the table to Jennifer. This is the restitution agreement for your portion. If you're serious about making this right, you can sign it today. Jennifer picked up the pen without hesitation and signed. David watched this, then slowly stood up. Patricia, I think we need to make this right. Don't you dare? Patricia hissed. If you sign that, you're admitting to a crime, David said, and he sounded tired, defeated. But also, maybe, relieved. Mom's right. We took money that wasn't ours. We lied. We were wrong. He looked at me. Mom, I'm sorry. I let Patricia convince me it was okay because you had plenty of money, because we were family, because we'd pay it back someday. But that doesn't make it right. I want to sign the agreement. Rebecca slid a second document across the table. David signed it, his hand shaking. Patricia stood frozen, watching her siblings betray her. That's how she saw it, I could tell. She looked at her attorney, who shrugged helplessly. Fine, she said, her voice like ice. You want me to be the villain? I'll be the villain. I'm not signing anything. I'm not paying back anything. And if you try to prosecute me, I'll fight it. I'll drag this through court for years. I'll make sure everyone knows that you're a confused old woman being manipulated by a predatory lawyer. I'll have you declared incompetent. I'll have you committed. I will burn this family to the ground before I admit I did anything wrong. The room was silent. Rebecca looked at Detective Williams. Did you get all that? He nodded grimly. Every word. Rebecca turned to Patricia. Then we're done here. Detective Williams will be filing charges against you for elder financial abuse, theft, forgery, and identity theft. Your siblings have chosen accountability. You've chosen to fight, that's your right. But I promise you, Miss Anderson, you will lose. Patricia grabbed her briefcase. We'll see about that. Come on, Marcus, let's get out of this circus. Her attorney followed her out, looking relieved to escape. When the door closed behind them, the tension in the room dropped dramatically. David sat down heavily. What happens now? Now you both work with my office to make full restitution, Rebecca said. The amounts are in the agreements you signed. We'll set up payment plans if necessary. You'll both undergo counseling. And you'll both stay away from your mother's finances permanently. In exchange, we won't pursue criminal charges against you. And Patricia, Jennifer asked quietly. Patricia will be arrested probably within the week. She'll be charged with multiple felonies. Given the amount stolen and the forged documents, she's looking at 2 to 4 years in state prison if convicted. Plus restitution, which the court will order regardless of whether she agrees or not. Jennifer started crying again. David put his head in his hands. I looked at my 2 youngest children, the ones who'd chosen accountability over pride, truth over loyalty to their sister, and felt my heart break and heal at the same time. Can I talk to them? I asked Rebecca quietly. Alone? Rebecca hesitated, then nodded. 5 minutes. We'll be right outside. Everyone filed out. Rebecca, James, Detective Williams, Angela, the court reporter. The door closed, leaving me alone with David and Jennifer. For a long moment, none of us spoke. Then Jennifer moved to the chair next to me. Mom, I don't know how to fix this. You can't, I said gently. Not all at once. But you're starting, that's what matters. David looked up, his eyes red. I've been lying to myself for so long. Telling myself it wasn't really stealing because we're family. That you'd want us to have the money anyway. That we'd pay it back. But the truth is, I got greedy. We all did. And I'm ashamed? I said, and his head snapped up in surprise. You should be ashamed. What you did was wrong. But shame can be useful if it teaches you to be better. Can you be better, David? I want to try, he said. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me. Forgiveness isn't something you demand, I interrupted. It's something you earn. Over time. With actions, not words. Can you understand that? He nodded. I looked at both of them. I'm your mother. I will always be your mother. And part of me will always love you no matter what. But trust. Respect. A relationship, those things were broken. And rebuilding them, if we rebuild them, is going to take years. It's going to be hard. And it's going to be completely on my terms. Can you accept that? Yes, Jennifer whispered. Yes, David echoed. Then here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to pay back every penny. You're going to go to counseling. You're going to respect my boundaries. And you're going to prove to me through your actions that you're people I can trust again. Maybe someday we can have a real relationship. But that day is not today. Jennifer started to reach for my hand, then stopped herself. Can I hug you? I hesitated. Then I opened my arms. She fell into them, sobbing like a child, and I held her. After a moment, David joined us, and we stood there in that conference room, the three of us, crying together. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet, maybe not ever, but it was a beginning. And sometimes, a beginning is all you can hope for. 3 months later, April 2025, I stood on the balcony of my new apartment, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Below me, the community garden was coming to life with spring flowers, and I could see residents walking the paths, chatting on benches, living their lives in peace and dignity. This was my home now. Willow Creek Senior Living, not a nursing home, not a facility, but a vibrant community of independent seniors who'd chosen to live somewhere they could be safe, social, and supported without giving up their autonomy. I'd sold the big house in March. The one Gerald and I bought 35 years ago, the one I raised my children in, the one that held so many memories. It was time. The house was too big, too full of ghosts, both good and bad. Angela had helped me sort through everything, keeping what mattered, donating what didn't, and moving into this bright 2-bedroom apartment with a balcony and a view. I kept Gerald's rocking chair, the photo albums, my grandmother's recipe box, the pearl necklace. Everything else was just stuff. The money from the house sale, after I paid off the mortgage and covered the moving costs, went into 2 places. Half into a trust that would fund my life here, managed by a financial advisor Rebecca had recommended, with ironclad protections that meant no one but me could access it. The other half went to establish the Marlene and Gerald Carter Foundation for Elder Financial Abuse Prevention. That had been Rebecca's idea. Turn your pain into purpose, she'd said. Help other people avoid what you went through. So I did. The foundation provided free legal consultations for seniors who suspected financial abuse. It funded educational programs about recognizing the warning signs. It trained bank employees and healthcare workers to spot exploitation. And it gave me a reason to get up every morning. My phone buzzed with a text message. Angela, still coming for dinner tonight. Marcus is making his famous lasagna. I smiled and texted back. Wouldn't miss it. Should I bring dessert? Only if you want us to love you forever. Your apple pie is legendary. I'd started baking again. Not out of obligation, but out of joy. And this time, people actually appreciated it. There was a knock at my door. I went inside and looked through the peephole, a habit I'd developed since everything happened. It was Jennifer. I opened the door. She stood there holding a small potted plant, looking nervous. Hi, Mom. I know I'm early. I can come back. Come in, I said. This was our routine now. Every Tuesday at 4 o'clock, Jennifer came to visit. We'd established this schedule 2 months ago. After she completed her counseling program and paid back the first installment of what she owed me, $3,000, scraped together from her savings and a second job she'd taken at night. She came in and set the plant on my kitchen counter. A small succulent in a ceramic pot. I saw this at the farmer's market and thought you'd like it. It's low maintenance and the woman said it brings good luck. It's lovely, thank you. We sat at my small kitchen table. So different from the big one in my old house, but somehow more comfortable. I poured us both tea, and we talked about safe things. Her kids, her job, the weather, the garden downstairs. We didn't talk about Patricia. Patricia had been arrested in January, just as Rebecca predicted. She'd fought the charges, refused to plea a deal, and took it to trial. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Jennifer and David both testified against her, which I knew cost them both enormously. But they did it anyway. The jury convicted Patricia on all counts. She was sentenced to 3 years in state prison and ordered to pay full restitution. Not just the money she'd taken, but 3 times that amount in punitive damages. Her husband Marcus had filed for divorce. Her job at the hospital was gone. Her big house in Riverside Estates was in foreclosure. She'd written me 1 letter from prison. I'd read it once and thrown it away. It was full of blame. For me, for Rebecca, for David and Jennifer, for the corrupt system. But not 1 word of actual apology. Not one word of genuine remorse. Some people I'd learned were incapable of seeing their own wrong. And that was something I had to accept. Mum. Jennifer's voice brought me back to the present. I wanted to tell you something. I looked at her. Over the past 3 months, she'd changed. She'd lost weight from stress, but she'd also gained something else. A kind of strength in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Tom and I are going to marriage counseling, she said. Real counseling, to work through everything. He was so angry when he found out what I'd done, he almost left me. But he's giving me another chance and I'm not going to waste it. That's good, I said carefully. And I've been going to a support group for people who've committed financial crimes against family members. It's through the counseling center Ms. Stern recommended. She twisted her hands together. There are more of us than you'd think. People who stole from parents, siblings, grandparents. Most of them are trying to make it right like me. She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I know I don't deserve that. But I want you to know I'm trying to be better. Every day, I'm trying. I reached across the table and took her hand. I can see that. And I'm proud of you for doing the work. Really. Her voice was small, hopeful. Really, it takes courage to face what you did and try to change. Not everyone has that courage. We sat in silence for a moment, holding hands across the table. Jennifer said quietly. Of course. Do you think, someday, we could be close again, like we used to be? I thought about this carefully. I don't know. Maybe. But it won't be the same as it was before, because we're not the same people we were before. You're someone who made terrible choices and is working to make amends. I'm someone who was betrayed and learned to protect herself. We can build something new, maybe. But the old relationship, the one where I trusted you completely, where you were my baby and I was your protector, that's gone. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I understand. But, I continued, we can try to build something else. Something based on honesty and earned trust and boundaries. It might not be as comfortable as what we had, but it might be more real. I'd like that, she whispered. After Jennifer left, I sat on my balcony and watched the stars come out. My phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. Hello, Mrs. Carter. This is Maria Santos. I got your number from the foundation website. I think my son is stealing from me, and I don't know what to do. My heart ached for her, but I also felt a sense of purpose. Tell me what's happening, Maria. Start from the beginning. I listened to her story, so similar to mine in many ways. The small transfers that got bigger. The pressure to sign documents. The feeling of being made to seem confused. And I gave her Rebecca's number, the number for Adult Protective Services, and most importantly, the encouragement to trust her own instincts. You're not crazy, I told her. You're not confused. And you're not alone. What you're going through is real, and there are people who can help. When I hung up, I felt tears on my cheeks. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of purpose. My pain had become a way to help others. My worst experience had given me a mission. A week later, David came to visit. This was less regular than Jennifer, maybe once a month. Our relationship was more complicated, more fragile. He'd paid back half of what he owed, but he struggled with shame and anger and the loss of his relationship with Patricia, who blamed him for testifying against her. We had coffee in the community room downstairs, where other residents could see us. I still wasn't comfortable being alone with him in my apartment. I wanted you to know, he said, stirring his coffee without drinking it. I'm selling the business. It's tainted, built partly with money I stole from you. I can't keep it. What will you do? I asked. Start over. Get a regular job. Live smaller. Be honest. He finally looked at me. I've spent my whole adult life chasing success, trying to look impressive, trying to compete with everyone around me. And look where it got me. I became someone who stole from his own mother. He set down his spoon. I'm 42 years old, and I'm finally learning what you tried to teach me when I was 8. Character matters more than success. Integrity matters more than image. Family is supposed to protect each other, not exploit each other. Better late than never, I said gently. Is it? Sometimes I think it's too late. Shannon barely speaks to me. The kids look at me differently. Patricia won't take my calls from prison. Jennifer and I are civil, but we're not close anymore. And you're kind to me, but I can see the distance in your eyes. I destroyed everything that mattered. You didn't destroy everything, I said. You destroyed trust. But trust can be rebuilt slowly if you're willing to do the work. Are you willing, he asked, to rebuild trust with me? I thought about it honestly. I don't know yet. Ask me again in a year after I've seen whether your actions match your words. That's the best I can offer. He nodded, accepting this. That's more than I deserve. After he left, I went back to my apartment and worked on the foundation newsletter. We were featuring stories from survivors, people who'd escaped elder financial abuse and were rebuilding their lives. People who wanted others to know they weren't alone. I wrote my own story for the newsletter. Not all the details, but enough to help someone else recognize the warning signs. Enough to show that survival was possible. As I typed, I thought about the past year. The betrayal, the discovery, the lawyer, the confrontation, the trial, the rebuilding. It had been the worst year of my life in many ways. But it had also been the year I found my strength. The year I learned I could stand up for myself, even against the people I loved most. The year I discovered that being kind didn't mean being a doormat, and that protecting yourself wasn't selfish. I thought about that Christmas dinner, standing in Patricia's kitchen with my sweet potato pie, feeling humiliated and small and worthless. If I could go back and tell that version of myself one thing, it would be this. Tomorrow, you bring the lawyer. And everything changes. You're stronger than you know, braver than you think, and worthy of so much more than how they're treating you. That night, I went to bed in my safe, comfortable apartment, surrounded by the things that mattered. Memories I'd chosen to keep, relationships I was carefully rebuilding, and a purpose that gave my life meaning. I thought about Gerald, and how he would have handled all of this. He would have been heartbroken, but he would have been proud of me too. Proud that I'd stood up for myself. Proud that I'd turned pain into purpose. Proud that I hadn't let the betrayal destroy me. I did it, Gerald. I whispered into the darkness. I survived. And I'm okay, and I was not perfectly okay. Not without scars, not without grief for the family I thought I had, but okay nonetheless. I'd learned that you could love someone and still set boundaries with them. That you could grieve a relationship while protecting yourself. That forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation, and healing didn't mean forgetting. I'd learned that being an elder didn't mean being helpless. That age brought wisdom, strength, and the clarity to know when enough was enough. And I'd learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is bring the lawyer the next day. It was Christmas Eve 2025. I sat in my apartment at Willow Creek, looking at the small tree I decorated with ornaments that held good memories. Outside, snow was falling softly. My phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. Merry Christmas, Mom. The kids and I are making cookies using Grandma's recipe. Thinking of you, love you. I smiled and texted back. Merry Christmas, sweetheart. Save me some cookies. Another text, this one from David. Merry Christmas, Mom. I paid off the last of what I owed you today. It's finally done. Thank you for not giving up on me. I felt tears prick my eyes. Merry Christmas, David. I'm proud of you. There was a knock at my door. Angela, with Marcus and their kids, loaded down with food and presents. Merry Christmas, they caroused. We spent the evening together, eating, laughing, playing games, being family. Not the family I was born into or the family I'd created, but the family I'd chosen, and that made it precious. At midnight, after everyone had gone home, I stood on my balcony and looked at the stars. Merry Christmas, Gerald, I said to the night sky. Merry Christmas, Mom and Dad. Merry Christmas to everyone who's loved and lost and had to start over. And then, to myself, Merry Christmas, Marlene Carter. You made it through. And you're going to be just fine. The snow kept falling soft and clean, covering everything in white. A fresh start. A new beginning. And somewhere in the distance, church bells chimed, ringing in Christmas morning. I went inside, locked the door behind me, and went to bed in peace. Because I'd learned the most important lesson of all: you teach people how to treat you. And if they won't learn, you teach yourself how to walk away. At Christmas dinner, they'd laugh that I brought nothing. But I'd brought something far more important the next day. I'd brought my dignity, my strength, and my refusal to be a victim. And that had made all the difference.